Hey friends, before we get started with today's episode, I wanted to let you know that I have just a few spots left for the two dreamy trips to France this September. So first we've got Paris and Versailles, which is for couples, and that is September 14th through the 19th. We are going to be in Versailles with Molly doing a private pastry class from her apartment. We are going to spend 2 fabulous nights in Versailles because I love that little city. It's beautiful and stunning. You will love it too. Then we will be off to Paris and we have a walking tour with Claudine Hemingway. We have a market tour and cooking class with Veronique with Cuisine Elegante. We'll be making an amazing multi-course lunch while drinking champagne and be in her beautiful Parisian apartment. We are going to be pickers for the day. We're going to Champagne with Cindy Couteau and going to this beautiful small champagne producer, family run, woman-led. She's 10th generation. Her name is Christine. I cannot pronounce the name of the champagne house, so I'm not even going to hurt your ears by trying, but you will love it. It's going to be amazing. Then the next trip is in the Charente-Maritime, and it's just a day later. And we will be starting in Bordeaux and then having a fabulous lunch at the Intercontinental Hotel before we head off to the Charente-Maritime region to check into our gorgeous chateau that we have rented the entire property. It's on a 75-acre park. It's unbelievable. My friend Jeff is going to be our private chef, so he'll be providing all of the dinners that we take at the chateau. We're going to visit Ile de Ré. We're going on a river cruise. We are going to make beautiful silver jewelry at this woman's chateau that she purchased recently. And we're going to do a private tour and tasting at Citadel Gin, my favorite. So much goodness, so much beauty, so much time to relax, so much time to engage and discover, so much time to shop for your own property in France if you are so inclined. We'll have lots of conversations with expats that have done just that. It's so dreamy. If you can't decide, you don't have to. You can come to both, like some of my clients are doing. But I just wanted you to know about those two things: Paris and Versailles, September 14th through the 19th, the Charente-Maritime, September 20th to the 26th. The link is in the show notes. Save your spot today. I cannot wait to play with you in France. Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, favorites. Welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing? How is your summer going? Are you loving everything about it? Are you hot? Are you cold? Tell me everything. We are enjoying beautiful weather. The peonies are just about done at the time I'm recording this intro. The dahlias are all in the ground, and I'm just so excited. You know me, I love beginnings. So, although the peonies, they're fast and furious, they still signify the beginning of summer. And with the dahlias, it's just so fun. So I pulled out 200 plants at the end of the season last year, and I used my new favorite way of storing them, which is the easiest thing ever. You dig them out and put them straight into a plastic trash bag and label them, and then that's it. You tie it up, you store them for the winter. They're insulated with dirt and earthworms and all sorts of things. And then in May, when I pull them out of storage to start to divide them, they're easy to divide because they're already growing. So I can tell which tubers are viable, and they're insulated and happy. And I had to get my calculator for this one, a 99.6% success rate in keeping these safe and happy over the winter. So of the 211 plants that I pulled out of the ground, we divided them and planted almost 700 tubers. Eek! It's so fun. So we're going to have 700 dahlias if everybody grows like they're supposed to, which is so, so fun. And I now understand compound interest. So that's so neat. And then we can pull out 700 dahlias at the end of this season, and who knows how many we'll plant next year. It's super exciting. So I just love how this dedication to something that we love, that takes time, that takes attention, that takes presence, and there's a bit of sacrifice in there, but the reward, it's so good. And it's something that I can share, which makes it even better and multiplies the goodness even more. So it's so beautiful. And I feel like that is equally the work of this podcast. I'm showing up, I'm weeding, I'm watering, sunshine is coming, and I'm just being introduced to the most amazing women that are willing to share their stories of yes and how they're growing in this beautiful self-care practice that we know everybody wins when we say yes to ourselves. And today's guest is lovely Athena Thiel, and she and I met a couple of years ago at a retreat that was hosted by Gina DeVee, and we chatted off and on, and then we found ourselves in another coaching program with a different mentor, Kathy Heller, at the beginning of this year. And one of the assignments was to find an accountability partner for meditation and self-care. And I thought, oh, great. I'll be an accountability partner for something that I'm already doing every day. That sounds perfect. So Athena and I decided to be partners. And so we started checking in with each other every day on this voice memo app. And first it was just, oh, I meditated today. And, she said she did too. So that was great. And then she started saying, I meditated today, and my intention for the day is I'm feeling into the feelings of freedom or power or grace or rest or some other beautiful, expansive word. And then she would say her self-care practice was she was going to go walk on the beach, or she was meeting up with a friend, or she was taking a bath with flower petals in it. And I thought, oh my word, who is this woman who does these decadent things? And so I started to share my definitions of self-care and thought I was being very up-leveled and expansive, and said, oh, my self-care is I'm spreading wood chips into the newly planted flower beds because that looks pretty when I look out the window, and that makes me feel good, and that's my self-care. To which she thought, that was very interesting that I could turn my chores into self-care. And then after that went on for several weeks, she decided to call me out and suggest that I actually do something that is expansive and decadent and doesn't necessarily have a return on the investment, except for it just feels good in the doing of it. And so I've been very grateful for the ways that she has introduced these beautiful practices. And I am getting better at adding those into my day. So I'm very happy to share this conversation with you. And because we chat so often, it was great to talk about things that I didn't already know about. So I'm really eager for you to hear from her, but I just want to share a little bit about her bio and what she has to say about herself. She says, I know the power and pleasure of abundance and alignment, of knowing your desires and going after them, because for years I knew the discontent of a life lived on everyone else's terms. As I continue to expand and grow in my own journey, my mission is to share what I'm learning with you, radically encouraging you to choose your alignment for yourself, your family, and your clients. When you align to your consciousness and have the courage to bring your specific gifts to the world, you invite everyone around you to do the same. When we are all in our alignment, we feel our true abundance flowing through us. Joy, connection, purpose, peace, and we change the world's consciousness. Isn't she fun? I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation with my sweet friend, Athena. Athena, I'm going to try really, really hard to keep this conversation to 1 hour. But I am so excited to see your beautiful face while we have a conversation. For my listeners, Athena is the woman that I have been trading voice memos with every morning for a really long time. I'm going to say we're on 10 or 12 weeks now. And for sure, oh, way longer than that. We've been doing this since January or February. So long time, a long time. And sometimes our messages to each other are 10 minutes long. And it's been so fabulous. So first of all, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be in this present moment with your presence.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so fun. And I'm so excited to have this conversation, having you just returned from this amazing workshop seminar that you were at that I'd love for you to tell everyone about. It's just beautiful, the work that you're doing and the ways that you inspire me to, especially to practices of self-care. So I will also remind our listeners, if they listened to the episode with Elizabeth Tiglau Gus, and I was referencing the flower petal bubble bath, this is her. This is the bather herself that takes flower baths that called me out on saying that chores are my form of self-care. So I'm really happy to have this conversation, to hear what's on your heart, to hear how you're saying yes to yourself in this season, and anything else that you want to share.
Yeah, thank you. Well, again, I'm just so excited to have a longer conversation with you, right? Because, we don't necessarily ever know when we're going into something and we're co-creating together, like what's going to come of it. But just allowing our consciousness to come together and meld together is going to be a beautiful thing for both our audiences, because that's what is universal, right? Is when we gather together in community, whether it's just 2 people or it's a lot of people, like 600 people from the Eckhart Tolle retreat that I just came back from. There is a consciousness there, and there's a creation where we really come together and advance consciousness, right? And so I'm just so grateful to be here. And we've been friends for a little while now. And I feel like I have grown so much from your friendship and
Mm.
from your wisdom. And so the feelings are very mutual. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And I honestly am just here for it. So, where would you like to begin today, Wendy?
Well, thank you for those kind words. And I too have gleaned so much from your wisdom, from the work that you're doing with your clients and the spiritual work that you're doing on yourself. You have inspired me to much more than flower petal baths. But I wanted to just make mention also that when you're talking about this collective consciousness and being with people that are like-minded and heart-centered, and if that sounds um, a little out of the ordinary to any of my listeners, I just want to encourage you to liken it to being on that flight to Paris. There is an energy on that airplane because everybody is going to Paris. Like, there's just this beautiful, no one's in a bad mood. The champagne is free in economy on Air France. There's just this raised vibration and awareness and anticipation of goodness to come. And when you going to this Eckhart Tolle retreat, multiple days, you've got people that are committed to this expansion and to this discovery and to this practice. You get all of those people in the same room with a mentor that they are really aligned with and eager to learn more from. It's just good things are going to happen. Like, good things
Mm,
are going to come, and there's more awarenesses. And I don't know if you've gone to any of the Joe Dispenza meditation retreats,
no,
but
not yet. It's on
okay,
my
so,
list.
and I haven't either, but we have friends in common that have gone, and some people that we've interviewed here on the podcast. And those are 4 days, and you're meditating for like 14 hours a day. And then people are saying it was so amazing, and there were 1,000 people, and I made such great friends. And I'm like, how? You weren't even talking to anybody. I mean, it seems amazing, and it's definitely next level. And so if anyone is just thinking like, oh gosh, I don't, what, okay, what is this? This is a kind of a departure. We've had a lot of conversations with people that I'm doing some of the excursions with in
Hmm.
France, and there is a different language when I'm speaking to you
Hmm.
specifically, that has to do with this understanding of us all being one, and
Mm.
that the separateness that we identify with is, you're a person sitting in California and I'm a person sitting in Massachusetts. So having this concept that we're all one can be a little bit, a little heady and a little outside of the normal conversation. So maybe you could start there with why this is important to you, how you have transitioned into the work that you do with your clients, and how this has really informed every area of your life.
Okay, absolutely. So for me, I teach abundance. I live abundance. And what that really means is the fullness of life, right? And so I help women entrepreneurs, coaches, creatives, energy healers really create a consciously aligned business for themselves, right? And so what that really means is knowing that we are very unique, right? We have our own set of lived experience. We have our own gifts. We have our own skills, knowledge, abilities, talents, right? And the people that we're meant to serve, they have their own uniquenesses, right?
Mhm.
And oftentimes, as women entrepreneurs, especially going into creating a new business, we look to like everyone else for the answers for what is supposed to work for us personally and our business and our clients, right?
Right.
And we can get lost often in trying different things that don't feel right because they aren't right for us, right?
Mm,
So when we actually take the time to kind of move from a space that's not egoic, that's not from the mind chatter, that's not saying like, this is the right way to do this particular business, or this is the right social media platform, or this is the right, um, ideal client, right? Whatever it is, to really move into aligning within to our most authentic self, to our inner being, to our higher consciousness, to our soul, whatever you call it, right? That inner knowingness, that infinite intelligence that lives inside of us. And when we connect to that space in us, that part of us that is always there with us, that is where we receive the answers for ourselves, right? And we are given the next inspired action to take in our business. And this really flows because everything we do when we're moving into a new business or anything new in life, right, is we're moving into the unknown. And that can be scary, right? And our ego, our mind chatter is always there to protect us, to keep us in the comfort zone. But when we learn to align to that space, that energetic inside of us that is eternal and never has fear because it never ends, right? And it never gets anything wrong. And that is the space where courage comes from, right? And when we feel aligned in that space, we have the courage to take the unknown, and what we feel from our ego side is scary. And we actually move in our business and we serve our clients and we create whatever it is that we're looking to create, whether that's, being a human design practitioner, yoga. I'm talking with a current client right now who's really excited about creating labyrinths in the sand for people to come and do, right? And have a spiritual experience on the sand and all of the different ideas that he has around that. We allow that creative energy force to just literally flow through us. So it feels so much more easeful and joyful. And that's not just with the business, right? It's with our lives, because when we can learn to do that in a specific area of our lives, like business and money, and our passion and our creation, we can do that with everything, right? With our health, with our relationships, with saying yes to ourselves in every single present moment, because that's what really, to me, saying yes to myself is that alignment to my higher consciousness, to that easefulness of the day, to following the flow of life.
amazing. So fabulous. How do you um how do you define alignment, and how are you using that to orchestrate your next move, with regard to your business, and how does that play out in your personal life as well?
Sure. So alignment means really focusing energy and concentration and attention inward, right? And connecting to that inner being, inner higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And we can do this with certain alignment practices, right? Meditation is a really great way to do this. You know that because you do this all the time. But meditation is really great. Walking in nature without your phone is really great. And like we said earlier, self-care and the flower baths, right? Really moving into having practices that are a part of your day, keep you aligned, because the thing is that we're really always abundant, right? We're really never separated from our consciousness, right? Our consciousness is within us. There is actually no separation. But because of all of the conditioning and the programming and all the things that we learned when we were younger, we can often fall out of what feels like wonder and awe when you're in the state of consciousness, right? Into that mind chatter, into that egoic sense of right and wrong and what do I have to do or what I need to do or what I'm supposed to do. And you live and you connect and you're aligned connection to that higher part of you that says, oh, yeah, you could do that, but like, what would be more joyful? Or how could
Mhm.
we make this more joyful and pleasurable?
Right. I I've experienced that. My word for I guess 2022, my word was aligned.
Mm,
And for me, how that played out was I wasn't yet in a place of what would be more joyful. I was more in a place of what would be less frustrating.
mm,
What would be so obviously like my focus was not in the better feeling,
mhm,
but that's a way that we can practice alignment is I this doesn't feel good to me. And
mhm,
so what about that doesn't feel good? Is it could even be an invitation to I don't know, volunteer in Amelia's class. Okay. So normally I'm going to be yes, 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 yes. If that is for some reason not feeling good, then I can like, what is it? Is it because I'm feeling busy? Is it because this timing doesn't actually work for me? Is the topic not something that is of interest to me? This feels like a terrible example because all of those things are yeses. So maybe that is a great example of
yes.
those things are that feels in alignment for me. I mean, I
Mhm,
know how to do this also, but I, that feels good. I love to be in the same room with Amelia. I love that she is 10 and is still super excited when I show up in her space and wants to be touching me the whole time and hugging me. And that's beautiful. And those opportunities that I can do that, it feels really good. And we have this inner guidance system. I would call it God. I would call it the Holy Spirit. I would say that's what informs my intuition. My inner knowing is God inside of me. And when we feel good, that's the clue that we should keep doing what we're doing. And when it doesn't feel good, my conditioning would say, well, you better just put on your big girl pants and do this thing. It doesn't matter that it doesn't feel good to you. It has to be
mm,
done, or you said yes to this person, or everybody has to do things they don't like or whatever. I would talk myself out of being more in service to another person rather than being in service to myself.
mm,
And I think that was a part of that lesson of that being my word for the year was I said no to really good things and I saved my yeses for the best. And that was not a familiar practice for me. I
mhm,
loved saying yes. Oh, my favorite was the last minute yes, because
mm,
I loved to be a huge relief to whomever was in a jam and
mm,
needed something. And sometimes that was, can you make 5 arrangements for this dinner party I'm having in 3 hours, and I'm outside and I'm harvesting and I'm like, I became really frenzied in
mm,
order to bring peace to somebody else.
mhm,
And that, I never questioned that before because
mhm,
being in service to other people was the most important thing. And
mm,
being told that I'm amazing was the
mhm,
most important thing. And that was very much a big motivator for so many of my yeses. And so having that be a focus, my word for this year is focus. But when alignment was my word and I was focused on really running everything through, how does this feel in my body? Do I want salmon for dinner or do I want potato chips for dinner? Like, I don't know. Like, I just, asking all the time and really getting familiar with what was important to me and what I wanted and how that fit. And
Mm-hmm.
it played out in silly things like potato chips or actual food for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And should I stay in my marriage
Mm,
or is it time to complete? So
mm,
these skills will help you in big and small ways, but alignment really is, it's pivotal. It's the key to all of these next steps that we're taking and all of these up levels that we are growing into in our business, in our friendships, in our careers, in our neighborhoods, in our lives, wherever we're moving, wherever we're traveling to, the people we're bumping into at the store, all of the things. It infiltrates every area.
mm. Yes. And I love her story too, because it really shows the journey and the progression of how all of this works too, right? Because I really do believe that consciousness being in connection with who you truly are, whatever you call it, right? So the God within you, right?
Mhm.
As you put it, right? And then the worthiness aspect of being able to say, I can say yes to myself, right? And the trust that has to be built in knowing what is it that actually makes me want to say yes, or what
Mhm.
lights me up, or what my desires are, right? And oftentimes, as women, we grow up with the conditioning and the programming that everyone else comes first, right?
Yeah.
Well, when everyone else comes first and we either don't ever get a say because everyone literally comes before us, or we're the last to have a say, then we don't know what that is, right? We don't actually know who we are, right? And so for me, the beginning of this abundance journey for me was really very similar to what you're saying, Wendy, right? Like, why does it feel so difficult? Whatever it is, right? Whatever the struggle is that we're in, right? And that can be, I call these kind of awakening moments in life as well, right? Um, and these tend to be larger movements in life. So whether it's a divorce, whether it's a move across the country, whether it's a death in the family, right? There's usually something that kind of wakes us up into
Mm.
something different and more. And usually it is because we are struggling with something, right? The pain has gotten to a point where we're kind of like, is this it? Like, is this what my life is? Is really? Um, is there something better? Because I remember that there was a time when I was a child where there felt like the world was my oyster and that there was infinite possibilities. And I got excited when my mom came to school and I wanted to touch her and hug her and tell her how much I love her. And, I had all this joy that was just me,
Yeah.
right? And now, how did I get here, right? How did this happen? And then so that's kind of the awakening into all of this. And then we get to have our own journey, right? And for a lot of us, it tends to just be very small incremental movements, especially in the beginning, right? Where we are just getting to know ourselves again. Okay, so
Mm.
what actually feels good? Like
Mhm.
boundaries, putting boundaries in place, right? And putting ourselves first. We talked about the self-care, right? And moving into these things that feel good. You mentioned feeling good in your body, right? Feeling good emotionally. What makes me happy? What lights me up? What makes me feel like I'm in flow, right? Who am I, right? And we're not talking about the egoic who am I? Although we start there because that's where our consciousness is, right? But we learn to trust ourselves. We learn who we are, and we learn that we are worthy of all of our desires, right? And then
Mm.
we start moving into this feeling of wholeness, right? Especially as we continue into our abundance journey and into our spiritual journey, and we realize that we are the deep I and not the egoic I. And
Can
then
you
we,
differentiate, please?
so the egoic I and the deep I, okay.
Mhm.
So again, kind of egoic, coming from the mind chatter, doing everything because the answers are outside of me and I'm
Okay.
following, what those answers are. Um, or even, any limiting beliefs that I have in my mind about like, the way things should be or need to be. And then the deeper I really being that consciousness, right? I'm using a lot of different terms for it, for people to kind of see what resonates best with them, right?
Right.
But again, it's the inner being, it's that Holy Spirit, it's that God within. That's the bigger I that lives inside of us, right? It's not this avatar Athena and like her hair or the way she dresses, or what she likes to eat. It's it's this larger, deeper feeling of being led, of giving over to and surrendering into infinite possibilities and knowing that we are all whole and we are all connected, like you said earlier, with the oneness and the same energy and moving from that space.
It's very big.
It is.
And it's so interesting because, you are much deeper into this work and into this journey, and it's fascinating, and I hear a lot of what you are saying, and I know, using my own set of vocabulary for it, and how it plays out, and I am not where you are
Mm,
in your understanding of this, and it so I feel like I'm doing some, just personally, like just translating, like, oh, okay, a part of that makes sense for what I'm doing over, so I'm kind
mm.
of like trying to, like, I feel like I'm trying on clothes in your closet right now. So I love these concepts and I trust you, and they're really new to me in how they have really infiltrate every area of your life. So it leads me to ask two questions.
Mhm.
One, have you always been exposed to these types of teaching or this type of mindset? And, or is this relatively new to you? And when, what was there were there circumstances, was there a mentor, was there, how did you
Mm.
get to be swimming in this pond?
I love these questions, and I appreciate it. And also, I want to reflect back to you that you are much further along than you know that you are.
Okay.
Like you are, you really are. And it's funny that
I
you
wasn't
say,
like self-deprecating. I just thought, oh God, okay, all of these words, my mom is not going to know what that means.
yeah,
And I want to tell her it's safe.
yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I
So,
mean?
yes, yes, and I appreciate that. That translatorship too of this conversation, right? Because we are all at different places in our spiritual journey and our abundance journey, right? Um, and I think, I didn't think that you were self-deprecating. I just am literally reflecting
Thank
back to
you.
you, of everything that I know of you. You are further along than you maybe give yourself credit for.
Thank
Um,
you.
And I will even say that I want to say maybe it was a year and a half or maybe 2 years ago now, when we were together in person, you had mentioned A Course in Miracles, that you
Mm-hmm.
were doing that program,
Yes.
and or channeled, reading and stuff. And at that moment in time, I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. That could be something that I could look into, right? And at that point, I would have said that you were much further spiritually along than I was, right? And so I just think it's interesting that it- this is a very personal journey. And so,
I agree. Yep.
and it happens as we are allowing it, as we are receiving
Mm-hmm.
it, as we are opening up to it. And then there are a million other things, right? And because our life experiences, while we have through lines,
Sure.
um, are very different, right? And so it makes sense that everyone is where they are meant to be on
Right.
their path, right?
Yes.
And so for me, it's probably been in the last 3 years that this journey has been taking place. And I want to say that before that, I did have a beautiful foundation of being in the Episcopal Church.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been kind of a seeker,
Yep.
even at a young age. I wanted to go to church for no reason really. And so I think
It's a
that
pretty building. The Episcopal
exactly.
Church is a pretty building.
Yes. Yes. And honestly, I think it was because our Girl Scout troop was there, and they had a beautiful women's bathroom. And so I was like, wow, if they have a beautiful women's bathroom, I want to know more about this church. It's the silliest little
I
things that
love
kids
that.
think of,
I
right?
love that. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
But so that evolved, and I was in the Episcopal Church for a long time, and then I took a break because I felt like I was being called in a different direction,
Mm-hmm.
although I had no idea what it was. And so I just wanted to completely drop all of it. Just stop going to church, stop doing anything really, and just find out where I was going to be next.
Mm.
And around that same time, I got into coaching and personal development even heavier than I had been previously.
Sure.
And so, I started off with Jen Sincero and the Badass books, and then that led to Gina DeVee, um, and she was kind of my first step into personal development with some spirituality.
Right, right. And that's where we met.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes, and then and that was beautiful and wonderful, and I was still hungry for something more.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or different, to hear things differently.
Yes.
And then so I moved into, working with Kathy Heller, which you
Mm-hmm.
suggested.
Yep.
And then, I also during this time frame had my regular life going on, right? And so moving from the East Coast to the West Coast, living in Seattle for a little while, moving to California, and I found this Center for Spiritual Awakening. And I started going there, and I started to learn a little bit more from them. And I love the center here because they bring together spiritual teachings, and they connect the dots between them. And
Mm.
and so they can point
Yeah.
to, like, this is similar wisdom that's being spoken here, just with
Right.
different words, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so so I mean, I feel like I'm also in it, and I continue to find new spiritual leaders and who really resonate with me, and I resonate with them. And there's just a continued deepening and
Mm.
aha moments and insights, and just to the point where, honestly, and I'm also going through the divorce process right now, which was
Mm-hmm.
another major awakening moment for me.
100%.
And so that was also a moment of, well, you could continue to be and do the things that you always did,
Mm-hmm.
or you could open up to the infinite possibilities, and you can learn to let go and
Mm-hmm.
not feel like you have to be in so much control over your life.
Mm.
And then when you do that, then you'll see that all these beautiful synchronicities are here and available to you because you're not pushing your own agenda so much. You're
Right.
not closed off to how the abundance is going to come, right? And, in our humanness, we can only imagine so much
Right.
because we have all of our, perceptions and perspectives and the way we view things and our conditioning and our ego, right? But
Right,
when
and
we,
we can reach for the highest branch we can see. So
yes,
we only know what we know, and we know it could be a little bit better, but to have that expansive vision of what is available, to
Mhm.
understand that anything that you can dream up, think up, imagine, you can be, you can do, you can have it.
Mhm.
And to know that because those dreams are in you, it's because those dreams are for you. And
Mm.
that is the key to unlocking this beautiful future for us, which, not to blow anyone's mind, but is also present. Like it's already happening in
Mhm.
a spiritual realm, which is why we can imagine it anyway, which is why it's for us, which is all of these things, because God is not mean and he doesn't dangle these things that we have an affinity for or a desire for. He doesn't dangle them in front of us and say, well, you're never getting that, but go ahead and
Mhm.
waste your lunch hour thinking about that if you wish. Like, that's not how he plays. He's not tricky. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to wonder around what is God's will for my life. It's like, what do you want? Well, that's it. and the
Mhm.
and the feelings of the having of it. So whatever it is, for me, chateau in France. Okay, well, what about a chateau in France is appealing?
Mhm.
Silly question. And how will I feel in the having of it? I will feel expansive. I'll feel excited. I'll feel generous because I want people to come. I'll feel entrepreneurial for all of the collaborations that will happen in that space, in the transformation. And I'm excited to be a part of it. And I feel hospitable and I feel free and I feel limitless and I feel like I have enough guest rooms and I feel satisfied, and that's all beautiful. It feels delicious to me. And so what can I do now that brings those feelings prior to the physical experience of this beautiful address in France? I can have dinner parties. I can turn my current house into a bed and breakfast. I can grow armloads of peonies. I can grow 700 dahlia tubers. I can create this beautiful space that is an invitation to linger, that is an
Mhm.
invitation to be transformed, that is an invitation to just be, to just come here and walk around and to have a pattern interrupt and know that you are welcome and you are anticipated and you are celebrated. And if I know that you're here, I will come bring you a glass of champagne. And if I pull in my driveway and I see that you are sitting in my trellis reading a book, my mind is blown because I'm so excited that you believed me when I said you should do that. And
Mhm.
it's like, those are the things. That is the dream making and the dream attracting, because we know that like attracts like. So when I have all the feelings that I think I'm going to have in the having of the chateau, that's what shortens that gap, that timeline between how many houses I have now and how many houses I have then.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Oh, you just described the manifestation process so beautifully, right? Because,
Yay.
yes, everything is happening through us,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so when we get to that point of understanding what our desires are and already creating the manifestation of thought, like you're doing, and feelings associated with those thoughts of your
Yes.
manifestation, those are already vibrational manifestations of what we want. And then the more that we do that, right, the more that we even take inspired action toward those things, whether it be creating exactly what you're wanting to have and holding the space
Yeah.
and inviting women into the abundance that is all around them, like you're
Mhm.
doing already. Of course, the universe is going to be like, oh my God, she loves it. And she brings other people and she raises them up in it. And of course, she wants to do something in France too. Absolutely. Here's your opportunity, right? And it just comes to you because you are the match to that, because you
Right.
already feel it, right?
Right.
Just like you said, in the oneness of all that we are, right? And in this present moment, all possibilities exist. And so it's just about being that manifestation and allowing it to come in and receiving it. And that we do that when we meld our consciousness, our inner being, our God inside of us, right? How you put it, with the manifestation. And so we are in the being and the doing, and that's when the manifestations come to full fruition.
To the having.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. And I think one thing that has tripped me up in the past, it's like, oh yeah, I can want this. And there can be a tipping point where it's like, but oh, I don't have $1 million, but oh, I have to find
Mm-hmm.
investors. Oh, and it starts to, the yeah buts
Mm-hmm.
start to file in, and they've been, knocking at the door. They've been waiting for their chance if they can get in there. And that's where we go back to, how does this feel in my body? Like, that was
Mm-hmm.
really exciting to go on that positivity rant, as my coach Rachel would call it, and a rampage of appreciation,
Mm-hmm.
what Abraham Hicks would call it. And that feels really good. And as soon as one of those yeah buts comes in there and it doesn't feel good anymore, then the practice is to get less specific. So if you are feeling good talking about your dream, then you can get as detailed and specific as still feels good. And if it doesn't feel good, then you go general, and you can just pull it back and just, I I love holding space for women that are holding space for themselves. And so
Mm-hmm.
that is a sentence that is true for the addresses that I get mail at right now, and will also be true when I add more addresses to my book, to my I Am a Land Baroness. Um,
Mm-hmm.
at those things, I can just get a little more general, and then that still feels good to me, and I'm holding that vibration. But when it is out of resonance, when it's, if you play an instrument, if you hit the wrong chord, you don't have to be a musician to know that didn't sound right. That was an accident. That didn't feel good. And we can do that with our own thought process and our own dream practicing and our own creative thinking, is that when it feels good, keep going, get
Mm-hmm.
specific, and when it doesn't feel good, then get general.
Yeah, and I want to just add one last thing to this
Please.
discussion. I think the other part of it is that we live in a loving universe, right? And
Mhm.
you use the word God, so we have a loving God, right? And all the desires of our hearts are really put there, as you said earlier, because they're meant for us
Mhm.
and because they are expanding the universe. And so when we believe that, When we believe and we have that faith enough to surrender our manifestations, that's when it feels so much more easeful too. Because yes, sometimes it takes some time for us to figure out what our desires even are and conceptually think of these things and how we do it, like what is the actual process of manifestation. But there is a moment where we're in that alignment and you're in that rampage of appreciation, right? And you can get really specific, and then you can just say, and so it is, right?
That's right.
And I let it be, and I surrender it, and I don't even have to come back and think about it because I know that it already is. And I've let it go. And it doesn't have to be harder than that, right?
Right. And even in the letting go, and I just want to clear up what I used to think that meant. I thought surrender meant give up on my dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, you can want it, but surrender because God knows best, as if that's code for you don't really have it, but don't worry because he's super nice. So there must be a reason. You'll probably never know what it is, but you just have to trust and your rewards in heaven. Which is like how I grew up thinking. So now when I hear surrender, I'm like, oh, no. This is, if these dreams are in me, these dreams are for me. And so what I have learned about what surrender looks like in a way that still keeps that fire lit for me is that I'm not giving up on it. I'm giving it over. And I'm not surrendering the dream. I'm surrendering my resistance to it coming.
Right.
And that's what I'm surrendering. I'm going to put that, I'm going to take Chateau in France is not on my to-do list. That's on God's to-do list. So I'm moving it over to that side. And that's what surrender looks like, is that I'm going to let that be in the timing that is best. And thankfully, my experience with when I decided I wanted to be a mom until the time that I actually was one was a very, very long time. And on this side of that wait, I know I used to get mad when people said, talked about divine timing and God's timing is perfect. I was like, whatever. But it totally was. And I am supposed to be her mother, and I am supposed to be her mother at the age that I am when she's the age that she is. And all of those things are beautiful. So that's something that helps me when I do put something on God's to-do list. I can do that more easily because of my past experiences, because of the way he has shown up for me on my behalf. And now I have this greater understanding of this co-creation process that we are doing together. And me not thinking about it, because a lot of the thinking about a chateau in France is more about the not having of it yet. Is so that's the resistance. Those are the thoughts that don't feel good to me. So that is what I'm surrendering. I'm surrendering getting in the way of the perfect delivery of my desire that is perfect for me in the perfect timing.
Exactly. Beautiful. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you,
So
friend.
good.
That was
Yes,
fun.
thank you. Yes, so juicy. Thank you.
So good. Tell everybody where they can find you, where they can follow along your beautiful journey, and all the good things, anything that's on your heart.
Absolutely. So I connect most on Instagram, so at Abundance with Athena. And I love when people DM me and comment and stuff like that. I love engaging and being in community there. And also, I have a couple of free meditations, abundance meditations at Abundance with Athena /free meditations. And that's kind of how you get on the mailing list too, and just get even further into this world But yeah, I'm always open and here and available for everything in this present moment. So yeah, those are the best ways to find me.
Perfect. Well, we will link everything in the show notes. Thank you so much. I love talking with you anytime, but this was very special. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.